Thank you for joining me today. My name is Asynchronous Storyteller, and today we're going to cover the basics of being a GM. Yay. First of all, if you decide to be a GM, congratulations. We're in short supply, and you're going to be praised and worshipped like a god in a very short time, even if you're terrible at it, because that's just how few GMs there are. The first thing we're going to do here is start with how to create a game, because when you first join Rolegate, you're not going to have a game to GM. So like in the last video, you're going to start with clicking start playing. Then instead of clicking player, you're going to click game master. Okay. This is going to be your go-to place to create games. It's going to ask you some very simple questions, and there's not a lot of ways you can do this wrong, but there is one very important thing you can screw up here that will cause you a lot of heartache. It will make you have to restart the entire process. If you have players, you'll have to have them rejoin, and it could be different players, and they could be angry, and you want to avoid that. So let me show you how to do that. But first, the first thing you're going to do is have a game name. You can change this so it could be anything. Okay. Here you can change the picture for your cover art. There are some people that have some sort of cult fetish for games that don't have cover art. Those are poor people, or I'm kidding. That's not true. They're not poor people. There are some people that have a fetish for no cover art, but I like to use it just to spice things up a little bit. And it seems like they've added some things here in the lower tiers that I haven't seen before, like this house. So we'll use this for now. These things can also be changed. Description is what other players are going to see when they're looking for your game. So you want to make sure to spice this up as much as possible eventually. But when you're creating the game, it is not necessary for you to get it perfect. You can come in and change things later. And if you don't like my keyboard, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any way for me to edit that out. So this is a test game. Cry, go cry and shiver. Yeah. Okay, so max players, this can change. You can have 6, you can have 100. Literally, I've seen games. I thought I saw a game with 100 max players. We'll try that later. 30 seems to be the maximum. Here, I like to list the game that we're going to play, whether it is Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, or whatever. You can put Shadowrunner, or you can put Call of Cthulhu, whatever the game is. I don't know if this is meant to be literal rules, but I will show you where I put my rules a little bit later. And just for reference, I'm going to leave my uhs, ahs, and ums in. I'm going to try to keep them to a minimum, but I don't have the time to edit the video out to remove every one of those. I'm so sorry. So here is where you are going to have the most risk of screwing your game up permanently and having to restart it. Once you pick a character template, you cannot go back. And whenever you're looking for a template for your game, there's a lot of really great pre-made ones out there made by other players. In this case, this one was created by Div himself. That being said, if you're going to play 5e, I recommend Mrs. Marth's 5e. It just has more details for role-playing. You can click through and see what it looks like. You haven't picked it yet. Even after you select this template, you haven't locked in. Here you're going to see a warning. Once the game is started, you cannot load a different template. You can edit it, but first you have to know how to edit the template to even get that far. So if you pick a template that you don't like, you will have to create a whole new game. Just fair warning. If it's something small, you can edit it, and I'm going to create a video in the future on how to edit it and how to create them from scratch. So stay tuned for that. If you have a template that's close, sometimes the best way to get a template that's perfect for you is to start with one that's close and then change it a little bit, because it's really easy. It just looks weird when you go into it. And just to give you a preview of what that looks like, there's a lot of these weird things that you click on. It seems more complicated than it actually is. Don't worry, we'll cover it in the future. If you do edit anything on another person's sheet that is only going to be for your game, it won't be permanent on their sheet. So don't worry about changing Mrs. Marth's character sheet, for example. It will add it to your list of templates, I believe, so that you can change the name of it and make it yours. It's a collaborative effort in that case. Don't worry about giving credit to Miss Martha. I'm sure everybody knows where it came from. You're going to have a hard time getting people to adopt it anyways, unless it's got a lot of amazing changes in it. So again, just to warn you, if you change now, everything is fine. You can go back and edit it. You can go back and pick a different preset if you want. You can pick the basic one, and that's what this looks like. Like, one of the things that I did is I like Mrs. Mars, but it doesn't have a picture, I don't think, so I went and changed that and added it. But once you click next and you start the game past a certain point, it won't let you change the template. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you get the right one. Don't be in a hurry. And if you have to, you can just make your own. You can go back. Let me demo that real quickly. Reset this. You can create one from scratch, and you don't have to fill it out now because you're going to make it later. That's fine, but you will not be able to go back later after the game is started and pull in a Shadowrun or a 5e pre-made template. Just, I want to drive that home. I may edit out one of these points where I'm driving it home, but maybe not. This is very important. Now, dice sets, you can edit. You can add these later on. You can pick one made by the community. For most games, the default dice set is going to be fine. I mean, most games run off of D such and such. And that's what these are. If you look in here, there's a D20, a D100, D6, D10. You can make your own dice sets if you want. And I will make a video on how to do that. It's over here on the left. But for now, we'll just pick the classic dice set and move forward. Here, you're going to pick the expected pace of your game. I warn you not to pick fast unless you can commit to this. So whatever you pick, if you pick fast, you want to make sure you commit to fast, because the people that choose to join a fast game want a fast game, and if you can't keep up, they will ghost you. They will threaten you. They will harass you, especially if you create a Discord for your game. They will constantly at you and tell you where you at, and then eventually they will leave. And hopefully they'll be respectful about it, but that your mileage may vary on that. Being a GM can sometimes be a thankless job. Average is similar. You want to chat a few times throughout the day. You have to commit to that. Most players, I would say, if you're new to the game, you don't have a lot of time, one of the main reasons you're going to play on Rolegate to begin with is because you don't have a lot of time. Choose slow, and if you go faster than that, great. If your players want a slow game and they get one that's a little faster every now and again, they're not going to complain. But if you disappear for months at a time, they may jump ship. The majority of games on Rolegate will end in a mass extinction event known as ghosting, where either the GM, the players, or both will just suddenly disappear. You will see them playing other games. You will see the GM GMing other active games, but that game will disappear. I try not to do that, and we'll have an episode about Rolegate etiquette. Well, I'll try to change that culture, but I'll probably fail because it's just ingrained in people. It's a social thing where if you don't have to take responsibility, you don't have to make that hard like breakup talk, you can avoid it. You will, and this is what's going to happen. But to avoid that, don't pick fast unless you can commit to it. The tags are going to be how people search for your game, so they're very important. If you want to get people to join your game as fast as possible, to where they're tearing down your walls and asking in the public chat for extra slots to be added, pick D&D 5e. And let's just, for example, say we're going to do a Curse of Strahd game. If we really want to get people harassing you to join, we would pick something like D&D 5e. We would pick Dark Fantasy. And then there's horror somewhere on here. Mature, because it's going to be a mature audience game, because there's a lot of people getting killed and whatnot. I wouldn't say adult content unless you're going to go really dark with that. Like I said on my other video, erotic roleplay is not permissible to be promoted, but it can be in private games. You just don't go on the Discord. You have to make it hidden. So we want to avoid that. This could be a sandbox game. It's definitely a campaign. Depending on how you run Curse of Strahd, I like to run it as a sandbox game. It's a horror game, definitely. And I think that's enough to get your point across that that's what you want. If you're a new GM, you can click beginner GM just so people don't expect too much out of you, because you tell them up front that you're a beginner GM. And we could also say beginner friendly so that they know, and just really drive it home, beginner, so that nobody is expecting too much. Set expectations makes things a lot easier down the road whenever you can't meet ridiculous expectations. And then even here on the meta, you can click beginner friendly. This is going to signal in other places that the game is open for people with no prior experience. You're going to have to teach people how to play the game. That's fine. But I do want to say, as a beginner GM and as a GM in general, you have to hold people accountable for learning the game. You can't hold their hand forever. You give them the material. They need to learn it. They didn't know what their character can do at the very minimum. They didn't know how to roll the dice. If they keep asking you what the spell does, if they keep asking you what their skills do, then you need to refer them back to the player's handbook and let them learn on their own. Maybe find them a video to watch. I'll get off my soapbox here and go on to the next settings. If you allow readers, people can come in off of the Explore tab and read your game, and that almost becomes like a book at that point. They can even bookmark where they are in your story. And a lot of people, I would suspect, only use Rolegate to read. I don't know if that's true or not. I've had a couple of games where people have picked it up and started reading it. I don't know if that's common. Allow public chat will put a chat box on the outside of your game where people on the inside can't see it unless they click a special button. And forgive me, my chair, I'm not going to edit that out because it'll probably ruin everything else if I do. But yes, this will let people barge into your game and ask you to open slots or put them in a waiting list that you'll never remember is there. Allow export will allow you and other players in the game to export the game outside of Rolegate. I really don't know what that looks like. We might try that in a minute. But if you don't click this, they can't do that. So if you value the content of your writing and you don't want people to come in and steal it, you can click that. They can still probably copy and paste it. So just keep, be realistic about it. I always allow this because I want players to be able to have what they wrote. And as we talked about earlier, if you're going to do a game that's not permissible on the site, you can hide it. This will make it where you can only have people join through a direct URL. You can send them a link, and I'll show you where to get that. I like to start all of my games as a hidden game so that I can set up all of the parameters before I start asking people to join it, because people will, and I've said this multiple times, they will beat the door down to join your game and start demanding that the game begin. People are really thirsty for role-playing games, and that maybe we'll make an episode about the type of players on Rolegate, and the thirsty gamer with like 50 games signed up playing at the same time will join your game because they can't help it. And God bless them. They have an addiction and they need to feed it. So let's go to next. Here you're going to see a password. I like to put a password on games just so that not a lot of people join, especially if I have a specific group in mind. If you have just you and you're trying to convert 4 of your friends to Rolegate so they can get back into playing because you haven't seen them in a long time and you miss your old games and you're all 40 years old. And I know I'm talking about myself here. Put a password on the game, send them the link, keep it hidden. No one has to know. It's just for you guys. They don't have to read your terrible role playing. If you don't feel confident in your writing, they will judge you. And there's actually a built-in system for judging. But if you hide it and you put a password on it, nobody can judge you. It's just you and your friends. So here we go. We've created the game. You can even go so far as to, when you're ready, send a looking for new players alert, and that'll show up somewhere on the explore button or on the other tab. But we don't have to do that now because this is going to be a hidden game. So from here, I want to show you how to deck out your game. Once you are comfortable with everything else, you can come in here and let me go back. You click test game at the top where it says click for game details, and you can see the name. You can change it to test game 2 or whatever you want to name it. Cursive Strahd. Never remember how to spell that guy's name, and neither does autocorrect. Cursive String Boy. Okay, doesn't matter what it's called because no one's gonna play. You can change the number of players here, but it's not up here. I think it's down here. I'm embarrassing myself in front of all my friends here. This game is locked. You can change the number of players. If you only want 5, you can make it 4. Whatever the case may be. You can add an assistant game master, but I think someone has to be in the game for this to work. They'll have the same controls as you, except changing the game master's the main game master, deleting or archiving the game, or editing the character sheet or template. So there's only so much havoc they can do, but you're still giving another person a lot of control. So I wouldn't do that unless you really trust the person or you don't care what happens to the game. You can add more dice, like I said. You can even go so far as to change the tags around if you're not getting players. You can pimp out the description to have whatever you want in it. I don't remember typing that, but that's fine. Let the record show. You guys know whether I typed that or not. I don't remember doing it. I do have ADHD and some other fun disorders that may have typed that for me. But I'll accept responsibility. It's there. Once you have the game public, this will show you, there's an eye here for how many people have joined the game. And there's a bookmark for how many people have bookmarked the game, just to let you know. Where it says this game hasn't started yet, this is actually going to tell you how fast the game is actually running versus how the expected is going. So if you put that it's going to be fast and it's actually slow, this will rat you out and your players will know. And just you made a commitment to go fast, you better go fast, like Sonic the Hedgehog. Up here, you can change the picture if you want. If you subscribe to a higher tier, you can get all the different cool backgrounds. So if you want to run a Japanese samurai game like a Legend of the Five Rings, you can do that. One thing I want to take the time to point out here is Rolegate is created by one developer, and it can be from time to time a little janky. So if you see what just happened, I clicked on a different picture and it didn't take it. But usually if you just go out and come back in again, or maybe right click and reload. Okay, something went wrong. There we go. So that's what I'm talking about. You have to just kind of mess around with it. Your mileage may vary, but the game's got the right picture now. And it has all the other things I edited in. So just keep that in mind. If it doesn't work, we all know you can post something about it in the Discord, which, if again, I want to show you how to do that. If you go over to the left and choose Discord server, you can join the server. Please do. We're waiting for you. And that's one of the best ways to join a game. I'll cover that in another video, but there are places on Discord where you can advertise your game, and there's places there where you can join your game. It's the same channels. So now that we have a game, what do we do? Well, how do we run it? Well, one of the things you're going to have to do is wait for players. But while you're waiting for them, if you have a pre-existing campaign that you're going to run, you're going to know what characters you need and when they're going to come into the game. So you can click here on the right side, manage characters. And at the bottom, there's a big plus sign. This is how you create an NPC. You confirm. And what I like to do is, because it creates a blank NPC with no details, you can just create a bunch. This kind of keeps your characters guessing, or not your characters, but your players guessing as to what's happening. And as you click here, you could change tags to make it easier. There's no folders, but tags are basically folders. So for example, if you want to create a monster tag to let you know in the future that this is a monster, you click plus, there it is. And then you can go back and click on this person and add a tag and say that they are a monster. That was the same guy. Oh, these are pre-existing tags that I could add. So here you could say NPC to let yourself know, not for your players. This is for you, because eventually there could be quite a few of these messed up there. Just to show you, you can add it back. If you go back again, now you can see this one's got the tag NPC. Because I already have monster tag, I can add it again easily. Once you've created them, they'll be there. And then later on, let's say you have 100 NPCs and you want to see ones that you've tagged, you can go to just the monster ones or just the NPC ones, and it should organize them. Let's try fleshing this out a little bit. We'll say this is a goblin, and let's go into more detail here while we're here. This is going to pop up every time you change anything about the character. If you haven't written anything yet, it doesn't really matter what you put here. But where this can come in handy is, let's say you have a character, and I'll use this example. Oh wow, this is back to what we were talking about, Rolegate being a little janky. I have no idea what's happened here. And we're back. I'll try to edit out the flashbang that just happened when I changed the name of the character. But Rolegate, like I said before, is a little janky sometimes. Things happen. Even worse on the... that was my elbow. Sorry. I'm not going to edit it out. It's even worse on mobile apps sometimes. So worst case scenario, you can clear the cache. If that doesn't work, delete it and reinstall it. If that doesn't work, you may be cursed. You sometimes have to take extreme measures. You can always come to the Discord and ask. But we'll make this character the goblin. You can edit the template like I was showing you before and add things here. We're not going to cover that right now, but let's say you had a character sheet for D&D 5e. All of your NPCs will also have it. And you can just say here, this is a goblin. Okay. So once you edit it here, there's no save button. You just leave and you hope to goodness it saves it, right? And sometimes you have to go in circles to come back. So it saved it this time. If you pay a subscription or someone in your game has a legendary level to grant you these, you can actually change the tokens. So as a GM, I would highly recommend at least gold level if you can afford it, just because it gives you more tokens and more icons to choose from. So this is a goblin one. Now on this account, I don't have gold. I do have it on my main one. Just keep in mind, if I had a gold, I could pick the goblin, but because I don't have it, I can't. And I can't even pick this list. So if you subscribe to copper, silver, gold, platinum, I guess, I don't know what the names of these levels are. Again, we'll cover that in another video. You just get cooler and cooler icons. And this level, where it's $50 a month, you get the most. I don't even know. That looks like a copyrighted. That's Albedo from Overlord, I think. But we don't talk about that. We cancel out of this, okay? So that's how you create an NPC. Let's go ahead and do another one just for reference. We'll call this one a merchant. And this is how they're going to appear in the game when you use them. Oh, yes, I wanted to demo this before my screen exploded. So let's say you have a shadowy figure, right? And for now, we'll just say only use this name from now on. We'll go back to the game. And now I'm going to demo real quickly how to act as one of these NPCs. So down here is a little book. This means you're acting as the narrator. If you click on it, or on the mobile version, if you tap on it, you can change who you're acting as. Now, if I had players, they would also show up here. So you can even, if you're playing a psychological horror game, make your players say things against their will. Make sure they know that you're going to do that so they don't get confused as to why they suddenly said something terrible and delete it. But you can do that. So let's say you're playing as the shadowy figure and you say something like, you have no idea who I am, but I know you. So you're trying to be mysterious. So let's go over this. This is the say feature. You talk as the shadowy figure. Here you have the tone, right? This lets you change the tone of the voice. And I use this a lot in my games because I think it adds a little bit of flavor. What it's going to do is change the border. It's going to say brooding, and it's going to change the color. So let's just use, for this, condescending. Now I'm going to send this. This is how you actually post the game. We're actually playing the game now. I know you're excited. We finally got to this point. So as you can see here, it says shadowy figure in a condescending tone says, you have no idea who I am, but I know you. Now, if you're the GM and you've done everything that you want to do, you can click I am done, and it's going to tell, if there's other players, it'll say the GM is waiting. But if everyone has clicked it, then it'll show everyone is waiting. In this case, I'm the only person in the game. So technically everyone is waiting. Now, let's say you go back and forth with your players and you want to have a big reveal. That's where this feature comes in. You go back into the manage characters list, go back to shadowy figure, and you change their name to your dad or whatever your dad's name is. Okay, so suddenly it was the character's dad all along. So here your options make a difference. If you rename the character elsewhere in the story, it will go back to the previous instances where it said shadowy figure and replace it with your dad. If you only use a name from now on, then from here forward, it will change their name. Now go back and now you can see it's, well, you can't see it because if it's the same character talks over and over, it just keeps one name. Let's just switch this up. The goblin will say Grug, because that's all goblins can say. Did I change it? I guess I didn't change to the goblin. No, so you're going to know that you've changed it if the color down here changes. So I'm going to say Grug back to him. So now it says goblin. So now let's go back to your dad. This is a terrible example, but you'll understand. Now it says your dad. So shadowy figure became your dad after he revealed it. And that's going to be just a thematic thing you can add to your game. Now the other options down here, if you pick chat, this is going to be an out of character chat. One important thing to note, and we'll cover this in a more advanced video, if you split your party up, anybody, regardless of what party they're in, are going to be able to see your chat. And this is usually what people use to ask the GM questions. So if you say, how do I roll for this check? And you send it, it's got no tone, and it's going to be out of character. It's not going to have a character associated with it. And if another person responds out of character, it'll be in their name. So, and it'll be their actual username. As you can see, it says AS, as in asynchronous storyteller. That's me. If somebody else replied in their name, it'll be their player name, not their character name, so you know that it's not their character speaking. Now, the other option down here is to describe the scene. Okay, and if you're the GM, you're going to want to switch to narrator. All right, and here you describe. Everyone is super tense about what just happened. Where did the goblet even come from? When you send it, it's not going to have a name. It's just going to be a fact. It's going to be a description. If you pick a character, like your dad, now you're describing what your dad is doing, if that makes sense. Dad sits there looking like a dad. Now you can see it's your dad. He is describing this. Now, some people like to separate their description from their text of what their character says by going back and forth, describing actions, saying say. Other people will actually work in what they say. I think this might even work. Let's try this. I'm not going to cut it out if it doesn't work. It's just, okay, so now you can see it says your text has quotes or blank lines. This doesn't work very well, just fair warning. For me, in the past, when you say automatically, it doesn't work very well. So I click never. Now you can see, because I put those asterisks there around the text, it changed them to italicized text. So there's a little bit of things you can add, and you'll learn as you mess around what you can and can't do. One important thing for a GM to know is if you're going to type paragraphs and paragraphs of text, like I like to do, if you hold down on PC, and I hit the mic, I'm going to leave it in. If you hold down Shift and then hit Enter, it will be a line break instead of sending the text. If you just hit Enter without holding Shift, it'll send it. And somehow it detected text in there. I clicked never last time. See what I'm saying? It doesn't, there's a little bit of jank. But if I type in some text, hit Shift, Enter, type in some more text, now it's going to be 2 different paragraphs. So if you want to make a long scene, you can do it that way. If you have the high enough tier of subscription, I think it's gold, but I'm not sure. It'll tell me probably when I click on it. Silver. Okay, if you have silver, you can actually post pictures into your game. It'll ask you for a URL, and you can type that in there, or you can upload a picture from your computer. I usually just find a picture online and post it with all the due references to the artist. Or more recently, I've been using Stable Diffusion to create AI artwork, but that's a spicy topic that we'll cover in another video. Maybe if I get really bored, I may cover how to use AI artwork in your games, but that's to come in the future. And then the last thing I want to cover, there's 2 more things I want to cover before we end here. One is the Notes tab. This is where you're going to be able to put a GM handout. So if you have a lot of custom rules, especially if you're playing a homebrew game, you can put them all here. And whenever the players go to look in the same spot on their game, they'll be able to see whatever you put on the left side, okay? On the right side, when you come back to private notes, these are things that only you can see. You can write things here to remind yourself, although I usually use OneNote or something on my phone to keep track of private notes. But if you have to, or if you want to, you can put them here. Players cannot see this. So that's that covered. A lot of times I will put custom rules for character creation here, or if I have rules overall, I'll put them here. You can also take it and put rules in this section, but I feel like it's less visible. This can't hold more than just the game that you're running. It can hold quite a bit of data, I think. And then the other thing I wanted to cover before we end is how to delete the game. And we'll cover more of these buttons in another video on intermediary GMing or something. I don't know what I'll call it. Cruise. Yeah, I can't spell, people. So take all my advice with a grain of salt. But if you want to delete a game, for example, nobody joined the game, or we decided that we don't want to do it anymore, you scroll down from this point, and here you can export the game if you want the text. I don't know what format that goes in. Experiment on your own. You could archive the game. Let's say that you've played the game for years or even a couple months and you don't want to delete it, but you also don't want to play it anymore, and you don't want people constantly asking about it. You could archive it so it can still be read, especially by your players, but not joined or actively played in. And then finally, if you just want to get rid of the game, and please do not, if you're the GM especially, do not rage quit and delete a game without asking your players. If you are going to quit without telling anybody, just archive it. But if you have to delete the game, let's say the best example is you picked the wrong template and you need to try again with the right template, click delete game. It's going to let you know this cannot be reversed and all the game contents will be lost. You cannot go on the Discord and ask Div to restore it, although we probably could. Don't do that. Click delete and it's gone. And that's it. I thank you so much for joining me. I apologize that I didn't edit the video as much as I probably could have, and I probably said a lot, but I'm providing these videos as a helper for new players, and I do not have the time or the sanity to edit them. I give mad props to anybody that goes in and edits the uhs and ahs and breaths and coughs out of their videos, but I can't do it. So if anybody else wants to come along and do a better video series on tutorials, I'll delete these. So thank you again for joining me. I am Asynchronous Storyteller, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.